We don't know. We do not know. And whatever decision is made may then be litigated. So we will see.
We are the Armed Attorneys. Today, we are answering a lot of your questions from the comment section as it relates to the injunction on the final rule with regard to stabilizing braces, brace pistols, and the like. But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button. And today's video is brought to you by our friends over at Sonora Desert Institute. Check them out at sdi.edu/armed-attorneys. Now, we did a video on the preliminary injunction, this nationwide preliminary injunction on brace pistols a couple of episodes ago.
It was a really intensely legal video, though,
Yeah.
if you go back to it. We're really talking about the legal basis upon which an injunction is granted and this particular injunction. So for the too legal didn't watch, that's still TLDR.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right. Still TLDR, too legal, didn't read. Here we have your frequently asked questions. So I mean, let's just talk about them, right?
Yeah, so we'll go with the first one. So to be clear, can I have a brace pistol now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Take yourself back to the year of our Lord, 2021, before the ATF had ever proposed this rule. That's where you live now. Congratulations.
Yep. Next question, is it immediate? The answer to that question is yes. The moment that the judge signed the order, it was a immediate injunction stopping or halting the enforcement of the rule. So the rule is currently not in effect. So to answer that question.
Here's a good one. Yeah, quit bogarting the questions, dude.
Well, I'm
reading all of them. Can I put my choice of sights back on a braced pistol? So why does this matter? Because there were a list of criteria which could, in fact, make something that had a rearward attachment an SBR under this rule. And one of those things was sights that would be, sighted as though you were firing from the shoulder. So the answer to that question, which is a very good question, Bad Ricky. Again, I always get nervous when I think if I don't know what something means. Hopefully he's just Bad Ricky.
Period. There's nothing else to it.
Yeah, we can only hope. Yes, that is actually a wonderful question. And the answer is absolutely. You do you, boo. Put those sights back on. You are good.
Yeah, and think about all of those 5 different criteria that we had for when we were factoring the criteria and determining whether this thing was an SBR. All those criteria go out the window. So things that might hurt the factoring, how it's used in the community, how it's marketed, those sites, position trigger, all that stuff goes out the window to answer Ricky's question. Do you want to read the next question?
Well, yeah, now because I feel like I have to be even Stevens. Okay. All right. That said, can I now buy an 8-inch barrel pistol with a brace?
Yes, absolutely. So I've seen a couple of websites, they've already gone up for sale. I've spoken to a few gun stores. They're already selling these brace pistols, but we are in a freedom period where, they're treated just like ordinary pistols. All the ordinary purchase rules now apply. And so we're back to purchasing these things. All right. Question. Will this affect shotguns like brace on a Mossberg Shockwave?
No. Although there are some internet lawyers out there who would say that the final rule did, in fact, affect shotguns. We are in unanimous agreement that is not true.
Yeah.
So
this changed the definition of rifles.
A rifle.
And had nothing to do with shotguns. No. And I would say that it's probably split 50-50 among the online legal community, and the other half is wrong.
Yeah. I don't even know that I think we're in the majority.
Oh, are we? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And they are wrong.
Maybe the 2 other people that I talked to disagree with me.
That's funny.
Yeah. All right, this is a really important question. Does a brace equal a stock? Are law-abiding citizens safe from the ATF if they want to put a normal carbine stock on a pistol?
First of all, you were never safe from the ATF.
Lesson 1.
Lesson 1. But the answer is no, right? This did not change what is a short barrel rifle. All we have gone back to is the world in which an arm brace is not a stock. If it's a stock, it's a stock, it's a stock, it's an SBR, right? So arm brace, not SBR, traditional stock SBR. Do not get confused because the ATF will not have any sympathy for said confusion.
Yeah, and this wasn't in the questions, but I spoke to somebody who had this question about modifying the brace. We go back to all of our traditional knowledge, pre-January 2023. Think about how we treated these things. So putting tape or Velcro or adding or modifying these braces, that stuff can get you in hot water. So be very, very careful.
What comes next after this injunction? Well, this was a preliminary injunction. So there will be a hearing on a permanent injunction. I expect that'll happen in the next several months.
Yeah, before middle of next year.
Yeah. I do not expect that anything will change. A permanent injunction should issue, absent something really crazy happening. A permanent injunction should issue. So
Yeah.
we will have this arm braces are legal and lawful status quo for the next,
I say years.
years. I'd call it 4 years probably at least. I'd be shocked if it happened faster. So
there's one scenario where I imagine that it doesn't happen. Permanent issue injunction goes to the Fifth Circuit or something like that, and then the administrative Supreme Court justice does a stay on it. That's a little hyper technical. Obviously, y'all are all paying attention to this stuff, but there's one scenario that I can imagine where this happens.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely.
Yeah, unlikely.
So this probably will be litigated at the Supreme Court level. That's why we're talking about years from now. So the answer is permanent injunction next, but this should stay the same as far as your purposes go for the next several years until we hit the Supreme Court, at which time, hopefully, the Supreme Court does the right thing.
Yeah.
We got a good Supreme Court.
All right. What do you think will happen to folks that complied and now have an SBR? Can they declassify and go back to a pistol? There's a few things that we have to speculate on here because the folks that receive these amnesty stamps, they didn't actually receive a stamp.
Right. You don't really get a stamp.
You don't. Yeah. They got this kind of like exempt from tax designation. So it is kind of just wild speculation what's going to happen at that point. But let's say for folks who
let's wildly speculate.
Yeah, let us engage in wild speculation because there are quite a few folks who went ahead and paid the tax stamp and decided to do this. And so they have the tax stamp in hand. And we go back to just kind of traditional rules for, we have our approved short-barreled rifle. There's only one classification of short-barreled rifle, so it's not like we have the second-class brace pistols and we have short-barreled rifles. So what matters is the description of the firearm, and the ATF, they require that they be up to date on the description of the firearm. So if you change the barrel length, you change the overall length, that's one of those things that you have to notify the ATF about now. So let's say you have one of these tax stamps, you change out the brace with a stock that doesn't change the overall description of the firearm, then no notification would necessarily be necessary. But if you do or are changing the description of the firearm or transforming it into a traditional rifle, that's when, there are some implications. It's important you speak to a lawyer about it. All right, next question. This one says, so the folks that register their brace pistols, if the rule gets shut down, do they get to keep their free tax stamp or do they have to convert their pistol back to a pistol?
Yeah. So again, wild speculation. We have never, ever lived in this world before. We don't know. We do not know. And whatever decision is made may then be litigated. So we will see. It seems to me like perhaps, just like you were talking about a moment ago, so long as if you've got a tax stamp for an SBR, so long as you do not change the overall length and you wanted to put a traditional stock on it and keep it as an SBR, I think you sure could. I think. Wild speculation. None of this has ever happened before, and it will be litigated.
Yeah. Jump ourselves in 10 years into the future. We have someone being charged with the unlawful possession of a short barrel rifle. They have their approval paperwork for the ATF for one of these amnesty items, and the allegation is, hey, you didn't have approval for this. That seems like an absolute nightmare to prove.
So, yes. So, do you have to convert back to a quote-unquote pistol? Do you lose said free tax stamp? We have no idea. Stay tuned. But again, this will be years and years and years and years and years in the making. And any lawyer, any legal expert can only at this point speculate. Last one. For the ATF, would repealing the final rule as issued and reissuing the rule as originally proposed with the Form 4999 make the discrepancy moot? At the fire spectrum, this is also an excellent question.
Yeah, really good question.
What's stopping this from going all the way to the top, only for them just to change the wording and start all over again as a new proposed rule? So if you watched our last video on the matter, we talked about why this injunction was issued, of course, not on Second Amendment grounds, but rather on APA grounds, because the proposed rule did not sufficiently have a logical outgrowth from the final rule. So they were not sufficiently related, essentially. So if a new final rule issued that was a logical outgrowth, or perhaps they proposed a new rule that looks a lot like the final rule now, right? That's the other way to do it. And there was logical outgrowth and they did follow the APA. Would all of this stuff happen all over again? And the answer is yes, we would be back in a world where you are having to obey rules on braced pistols because none of this is being litigated on like, hey, the Second Amendment. Right. The Second Amendment says that I should be able to have these things. It's being litigated on you didn't jump through your regulatory hoops.
Yeah.
So if they go back and they moot the case by sufficiently jumping through their regulatory hoops, yeah, absolutely. You have hit the nail on the head. You are back in the world where we are abiding by a brace rule. So it's I guess, unfortunate reality. Let's hope that they don't do that.
Right.
But really, until we have a Second Amendment case regarding NFA items such as SBRs, this is the risk we live under.
Yeah, so they get rid of the bait and switch element. Well, then if it wouldn't be invalidated on APA, maybe then the challenge is it has to be on the Second Amendment or something like that.
So, but bear in mind, we actually have said case going, assuming made in Texas suppressors gets decided on Second Amendment grounds rather than Commerce Clause grounds. I think Commerce Clause is weaker at the end of the day. But assuming that gets decided on 2A grounds, I think potentially we have a case that could tell us that the NFA is unconstitutional, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
So, well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We are asking you to leave us more questions. I think that what we are going to do for our next sidebar episode is answer your questions. So anything you want to know, serious, silly, hopefully not like just mean. Like if you ask Richard about his toupee, we're not going to answer that question. That's a well-kept secret. But we will discuss them in our next sidebar episode. So please do leave us some questions. We'll have a good time with them.
Jen, what have you done? But if you listen to the answers to all these questions and said, what the hell are they talking about? Well, we have an entire video explaining the preliminary injunction on brace pistols. If you want to learn more about that or want to know what's going on, you got to check that video out right here. And until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.
It's like, you have too much time.
It's like, I made an ice skating rink for all the elves.